In this video, we're going to be looking at additional Biome Map commands you can use with Teragon. This is an updated version of the second part of the Biome Map tutorial videos. It adds in some additional commands that weren't included in the first video. If you haven't yet watched the first tutorial video on Biome Map commands, I suggest checking that out first. The commands in that video are the ones you're more likely to be using. We're going to start with this video with the command create single biome map that you see here. This is a very basic command that you can use that will make one single biome on the entire map. So if you're looking to have a map that is only one biome, you can use this command. It's very easy to use. Once you add it to your preset, you're going to make sure it says my biome map, if that's the biome map name that you're using. And you're going to check the biome type that you want. So if you want it all forest, you'll have this selected as forest, and then your entire map will be forest. This command can also be used to start out your biome map and then use additional commands to modify that biome map while still using the biome you create with this command as a backdrop. We'll be looking at that with the second command that we look at in this video, but for now, we look at this command just setting it to forest, and we look at the preview. You can see that the map is all forest. It is just a very basic command, but it can be used either in combination with other biome commands or for a map that you want to be one single biome. The next biome command we're going to look at is create biome at locations. This command lets you set a specific biome at a specific location on your map, either based on coordinates or based on the name of a POI. In this example, I've started out with create single biome map in order to create a base biome of forest. And then I'm using create biome at locations to update this biome map and set it to burnt forest. Now the way this works, to use this command, you're going to first create some kind of a biome map so that you have a base biome to use behind what you're adding. And then you're going to have create biome at locations to set up biomes at specific locations. In this case, we look at here, I've got biome map name and water map name set up, and I've added two locations, coordinates of -1000, -1000, and +1000, +1000. Scroll down here, it's set to water limiting. That's going to keep the biome from spreading past water. What that means is that if you have something like a river and the biome would spread beyond the river, with this checked, it will stay on one side of the river. Biome type will be the biome that you want to appear at the locations that you specify. In this case, I have it set to burnt forest. If you look at the other parameters, these are ones that you've seen in other commands related to biomes and related to the height map. These all have an effect on how the shape of the biome will appear. I won't go through what everything does in here. You can read that on the side in the help text. The best thing you can do with these is to try out different values and see what you think you like best. The main thing you want to look at though is radius, which is going to be how big the biome will be at the location that you specify. Using the default values and setting these two coordinates, we run the preset. You can see I've got my forest background that I used as a backdrop, and I added 2 spots of burnt forest. The center of each of these spots would be -1000, -1000, and +1000, +1000. If I'd set it to a POI name, then these would appear around that POI. If I wanted these to be bigger or smaller, I can adjust that radius value. And if I want them to be closer to a circle, or if I want them to be more random, I can adjust those other parameters as well. You can have any number of these locations set up. However, each command that you have only has one biome type to choose from. So if you want to have a mix of different biomes, you'll need one command for each biome. The final command we're going to be looking at in this video is create polar biome map. This is a little bit more complex command that lets you create a biome map of circles inside circles inside circles. You're going to start out with Biome Map name. If you are using another Biome Map as a base, you can put the old Biome Map name in there. Most of the time you can leave that blank. If you do use old Biome Map name, then when you come down to the bottom here where you choose biomes, you would choose old Biome Map name there in order to keep the original biome in that location. Otherwise, you're going to use whatever biome you select. Default biome, burnt forest in this case, is going to be what the biome is around the biomes that you're creating with this command. So if you look on this example here, we're creating all of the biomes in the middle, and there'll be a burnt forest circle around the rest of that. The default biome fills in the gaps around that circle. So it looks like it's all one biome instead of a circle of burnt forest around the edge and then no biome on the corners. You always need to have biome on everywhere on the map, so this is how you do that. And you'll normally want to set that up to whatever your outside biome will be. These parameters, like with the other commands, all have an effect on how those biomes look. In this example, we have a lot of screenshots that will help you figure that out. Rather than do a map of each one of them, I'm just going to go through the examples on the help text so you can get an idea of what they look like. As you can see, frequency affects the amount of noise around the biomes. Noise is what creates a pattern of some sort around the biome. A lower frequency will give you a smoother biome around the edges, and a higher frequency will break it up a lot more. Octaves also affects the smoothness versus roughness of your biomes, but as you can see, it's in a different way. Low octaves will keep it from being as round as what we would have with a higher octave, and higher octaves will make it a lot more rough. Linearity is similar. A lower one will give you smoother edges, but it'll still be broken up a lot more than what you would have with just a default value. And higher linearity will give you more of a round look, but it'll also be broken up more. And gain is also similar. Lower gives you smoother but less round, while higher gain gives you more round but more broken up. All of these parameters have a very similar effect to one another, but they do things in a different way. So you'll need to adjust them depending on what kind of effect you're looking for. When we scroll down, we'll see there's different fractal types that you can choose from. Each of these has a different kind of layout for how the noise works. So depending on the style that you like, you would choose that kind of fractal type. Again, this is just a matter of preference, and you'll have to try the different ones to see what you like best. Noise impact will affect the overall shape of your biomes. As you can see, a low noise impact will be a very round look to it, and a higher noise impact will break it up a lot. As we go down to the bottom of this is how you're doing your biomes. You're going to choose the biome type that you want. You have an X0 and Y0 value, which is location. You have Rx and Ry value, which are the radiuses for X and Y. And you have rotation angle, which is the rotation of the biome. We'll get into invert afterwards. So when we start out here, we can look at what we have here. By setting your X and Y 0 values, you're setting how those biomes are set up. By default, with them set to 0, 0, everything is centered on your map. If you look at the example here, I have different values for each biome. What this does is it creates a pattern of biomes starting at a top right and moving downward towards the bottom left. In this example here, I set everything except for the burnt forest to 500 500. This centers everything but the burnt forest at the top right. The burnt forest, because that's default biome, will cover the entire map that's not covered by those other biomes. The radius, as you can see, can affect the shape of the biomes. In this example, I set a smaller radius on the wasteland, and I worked up to larger radiuses up to the burnt forest. I also set the Y value of each of these to 2 times what I have for the X value. That gives us an oval shape that's taller than it is wide. As you can see here, it gives you kind of an eye shape rotated to the side. If I had done Rx at 2 times Ry, that would have turned this on its side, and it would be an eye shape that's more horizontal than vertical. If we look at rotation angle, this rotates the biomes based on that rotation. So as you can see here, I did each biome a little bit more rotation. So you start out with the desert that's mostly straight, it's at 15 degrees, and it slowly turns more and more until you get the wasteland that's at 60 degrees. Now, of course, rotation is not going to be as noticeable if your biomes are more round rather than oval, but you can use that to rotate the biomes if you feel that it looks good for your map. The way invert will work is instead of setting the wasteland like this, where this center part is a wasteland, it will invert it, and it will make everything that's outside of that circle wasteland. And then what's inside the circle will be one of the other biomes that you have set up, or the default biome, depending on how you have your biomes laid out. You can enable and disable each of these if you want to change things while you're going. Anything enabled will be used, anything disabled will be ignored. You also need to pay attention to the order that you place these, because they are layered on top of each other. If I did these in the reverse order, where I had wasteland at the top and then worked my way down, the only thing you would see is the burnt forest, because the burnt forest covers everything, which would also include this center area. Think of it as pieces of paper on top of each other. If you put the smallest one on top, you're going to see it. If you put the smallest one on the bottom, you won't see it. So the order of these is important. If we run the default settings for this, we're going to see this on a 4K map. If you were to change this to an 8K map, this would not cover the entire map like this, because the default settings don't scale with the map size. They're a set value for the sizes of each of these biomes. So with an 8K map, instead of covering most of the map, they'll cover about a quarter of the map. To change that, you would need to go in here and you would change your radius, Rx and Ry. If you want to use math values based on world size, like you can see in some of the default commands and presets, you can do that and then have it adjust size automatically based on the size of your map. Or you can just make it easy and put in specific values like what we have here. Again, these are just some of the biome commands that you can use with Teragon. Most of the ones you would use are going to be in the first video, so I suggest watching that if you haven't already. If you have any questions about these commands or the biome commands in the first tutorial video, or any other questions about Teragon, please go to the chat and help channel on Teragon's Discord, and someone will be able to help you.